The Roccat Kone Pure Military has been in the top mice list for a long time now. It's a small, relatively lightweight mouse with very good buttons, possibly the best scroll wheel, and a top sensor. Where it falters a little bit is in the shape. Some people love it, others hate it, and as that's what separates it most from other mice, that's going to be the deciding factor with the Roccat Kone Pure Ally too. Other than a new sensor, it's basically the same. It's also just a smaller version of the Roccat Kone Pure EMP. So let's look at the shape now with a tour of the mouse. It's a very unique design, even from the top, and it's even more obvious from underneath. The left side has a deep thumb groove, making it a little unsafe shape-wise, but it seems comfortable enough. The right side is actually very comfortable for me, with a nice subtle curve inward for my little finger, and a vertical curve to make it easier to pick up. The button slope is gradual, but unfortunately, there are no comfort grooves, and it's all plastic now. I really like the rubberized textures of the previous versions. I guess this is more durable, that's why they've changed it. Where it has been improved is the weight. It's now only about 88 grams. That puts it into the very light category, no longer just relatively light, and despite the odd shape, it seems fairly well balanced. Here it is next to some other mice so you know the basic size of it. With an 18cm hand, I felt I wanted to fingertip grip it. I can sort of palm grip it, but generally I recommend a mouse that is 60% of your hand measurements. So this is a bit harder than most, but I think the grip width is about 5.8 centimeters. The length is about 11.8, and the height is roughly 4. In theory, it should suit people with hands that are 19.5 by 9.5 centimeters. That's for the best aim though, and I'd say with fingertip grip. However, in practice, I think it's going to suit palm grip for people with hands under 17.5 centimeters. Claw grip under 19.5, and fingertip over 17.5. Obviously, if your hand is bigger than 20 centimeters, you should be looking at the Kone EMP instead. The buttons should be suitable for all game types, as they're fairly light but have more tension than the military version. From what I'm told, that might be better for jitter clicking. Here's a listen to each. So the left and right and the side buttons are louder now, and they sound different from each other, which is pretty normal. The mouse wheel doesn't feel as good to me, but it's still very good. Middle mouse button seems a bit softer, and so do the DPI buttons, but that's a good thing. I think this comes down to personal preference. Overall, they're good buttons, but to me it feels like the quality isn't as high as the military. In the latency testing, there's nothing really in it. They're very responsive. Those numbers are so similar I wouldn't even give them a second thought. Also, I was able to hold down multiple buttons at once, and they didn't activate when tapping the mouse. As for the new Ally sensor, it's a modified 3360, the 3361 optical, and yes, it's a top sensor. It handled my rocket jumping perfectly, and I couldn't make it spin out no matter how fast I threw it across the pad. And even when tilting the mouse and slamming it down, it still didn't spin out. Zooming in for the sniper test, it tracks pixel by pixel, and it does it smoothly. I tested it at 400, 800, and 1600 DPI. As far as I can tell, there isn't any noticeable acceleration or deceleration. And the liftoff distance is about 1 DVD, that's on a cloth or a hard pad, which is quite low. I can't detect any delay just by feel, it seems quite good. And for the 360, it's just a bit faster than the G403 at 1600 DPI. Not a big deal though, just measure your 360 before you get one. And in the line tests, I can't find any jitter, angle snapping, or skipping. The liftoff movement is well controlled, and there's no lens or sensor rattle. Unlike the Kone Pure Military, which had a lens rattle on many of them, this one seems better built. Even when tapping or shaking it, there's no abnormal sound. The cable has been improved too. It's still 1.8 meters and braided, and could be smoother, but it does seem more flexible now. The mouse feet glide smoothly, and they seem a bit thinner than the military version. The DPI goes from 100 to 12,000, and that's in increments of 100. There are several profiles, and it has onboard memory to store the settings. The button assignments are quite good, with lots of options. And if you enable easy shift, you can essentially double the amount of buttons that it has, including the scroll up and down. The options include macro, although it doesn't seem to record the buttons, you have to insert them as events. I don't know if that's good or bad, I'm not a macro user. Then you have basic and advanced functions, multimedia, and more. The problem I have with this is the same problem as before. It's an RGB mouse, but it doesn't have a smooth gradient mode. The Roccat Kone does, so it seems they can do it, but for some reason on their premium mice, they have this solid color change. The transition isn't smooth, so I hope Roccat can fix that in the future. Now here are some highlights while I give my conclusion. I can aim quite well with it and I enjoy playing. That's the main thing, so while I think the quality has declined in some ways and improved in others, overall it's still a great mouse and a top recommendation. The new sensor will help the people who had spinouts with the military version, and the new weight may make it easier to aim. I'm just a bit concerned with the drop in quality of the button feel. Apart from that, most of it seems really good. As always though, it's a love-hate thing with this. If you think it's going to be your style, or you have a smaller hand and want a really good palm or claw grip mouse, then this is great. It really depends what you want and what will suit you. Just because it's not number one on my list doesn't mean it shouldn't be number one for you. And this is a mouse that can definitely be number one for a lot of people. So on that, I can highly recommend it. But I hope it's just my copy that doesn't have the best quality on the buttons. This could have been a demo unit, because to my understanding, it's the only one in Australia at this time. So I hope that helps. Special thanks to Roccat for sending this out for review so soon. And if you want to buy one and help support the channel, I'll leave the usual links in the description. Subscribe, share, and like this video, and I'll catch you in the next.
Press it. Describes in 2 seconds.